She just wanted to buy rice. They saw her skin and accused her of theft. Witness the moment a daughter's unwavering fight for justice exposed the painful truth. The handcuffs clicked in the supermarket, all for trying to buy rice. My mother just wanted to cook rice and beans that afternoon. It was like any other hot day. I was at my law office when the call came, but before the phone rang, before the humiliation went viral, my mother only wanted to shop. She left early, as always on Mondays, purse over her shoulder, slippers on her feet, the quiet patience of someone who's learned to survive. She went to Bargain Foods, where the rice was cheaper. Retired, she knew how to stretch every penny. Calmly, she entered, nodded to the security guard, grabbed a cart, and headed to the grains aisle. The store was crowded, it being the end of the month. Carts bumped into each other, children cried, the radio hummed in the background. Then everything changed. Witnesses later said it was swift. A store employee called the security guard, who whispered into his radio. Within minutes, 2 uniformed police officers arrived. One came straight to her. Didn't ask her name. Didn't check her bag. He approached with his hand on his holster. "Open that bag, now." My mother froze. Tried to explain that she lived nearby, that she shopped there regularly, even knew the manager by sight. But her voice was barely audible. The officer stepped closer and shouted, "Are you going to cooperate or make this difficult?" Tears filled her eyes. Then the manager appeared, white, tall, with an arrogant air. "This woman has been seen here before. She always looks suspicious. Today, she tried to leave with 2 bags of rice without paying." A lie. Her bag couldn't fit 2 bags of rice. She had one in her hand with the receipt folded in her blouse. But no one cared. Some customers began filming. A woman in the meat aisle shouted, "She didn't do anything." But the officer already had the handcuffs out. My mother cried out, not in despair, but in shame. "Please. I'm a retired teacher. This is a mistake." The sound of the handcuffs drowned her voice. They let her out like a criminal, in front of neighbors, in front of former students who'd heard she was a fighter. Her purse fell, spilling a comb, her ID, and a photo of me in my school uniform. I'm an only child. A young man tried to intervene, saying he knew her, that she taught his aunt, that this was racism. The officer told him to shut up, that he was interfering with an investigation for a 65-year-old woman with high blood pressure, as if she were dangerous. The phone rang. It was a neighbor, Mrs. Evelyn Clark. "Alana, your mother's been arrested at the market. Come quick." I hung up, ran out, and drove to the precinct, trembling. I've been a public defender for 7 years, seen wrongful accusations and system errors, but nothing prepared me for this. When I arrived, I found my mother sitting on a bench, her face swollen from crying, hands still marked by handcuffs. A police officer was taking her statement without even looking at her. She saw me, and her face softened. "Alana," her voice was barely a whisper. In that moment, I understood the helplessness that so many had felt in this country, that feeling only racism can inflict. What no one there knew was that the woman they arrested had history. She had a name, a daughter who knew the law better than anyone in that room. I took a deep breath and asked calmly, "Who's in charge here?" My mother's name is Marlene Hayes. She was born in Rio de Janeiro suburbs and spent her life fighting for respect in a country that ignored people from her background. Daughter of a laundress and a construction worker, she was the first in her family to finish high school. She got her teaching certificate at night, tutoring in the afternoons, caring for siblings in the mornings. She had a quiet firmness, always listened to, without raising her voice. For 35 years, she taught in a public school. Despite overcrowded classrooms and delayed salaries, she always said education was about more than subjects, it was about protecting. She spent her life protecting others, until that day when no one protected her. After retirement, her routine changed. She woke up later, had coffee and listened to the radio. She stayed active, volunteered, and organized book donations. She was known and respected. That day, she just wanted to buy rice and pick up her blood pressure medication. Money was tight. She took her wallet, ID card, and a crumpled shopping list. She wore slippers, tied her hair back, and put on her floral dress, the same one she wore to union meetings. The bargain foods market was simple, a popular local spot, concrete floor, high shelves, wall fans. It was a Monday afternoon, not too crowded. Many elderly people and mothers with babies were there. My mother went straight to the grain section, where she'd always gone. A security guard, a young white man, followed her through the aisles and spoke into his radio. The cashier who knew my mother tried to intervene, but it was too late, she was already a suspect. She hadn't even reached the checkout. The police arrived, and one officer pointed at her, saying, "Stand over there and show me your bag." She tried to explain she hadn't paid yet. The manager appeared, saying, "She's been here before." We caught her red-handed. The lie was delivered with such confidence, no one questioned it. My mother was searched in front of everyone. The security guard opened her bag, finding only a wallet, $10, and a piece of candy. Still, she was handcuffed. Her eyes filled with tears, and her body trembled with shame. No one cared about her history or her reputation. She was treated as guilty from the first glance. The color of her skin, her simple clothes, her age, and her status were enough to make her invisible, a threat. Her arrest marked the beginning of everything going wrong. She just wanted to buy rice, pay, and leave. But for a black, elderly, poor woman, even something so simple became a reason for arrest. She held the bag of rice, trembling, with no one listening to her. "Open your bag." She opened it. Inside were only an old wallet, a prescription from her doctor, a handkerchief, and a piece of hard candy. Nothing more. The security guard rummaged through her belongings as if expecting to find something, but there was nothing. Still, the officer decided to handcuff her without a second thought. He twisted her arms behind her, securing the handcuffs in place. She cried out, "This is abuse. I'm a retired teacher. I live here." But no one reacted. The manager stood with his arms crossed. The security guard stared at the floor, and the officers dragged her out of the market. On the sidewalk, a crowd started to gather. Some people recognized her. "That's Mrs. Hayes. She helped my brother pass a grade," one young woman said. Another person begged the police to let her go, but the officer responded coldly, "This isn't up for debate. We're following protocol." Protocol, a word that masked the prejudice behind their uniforms. My mother, her arm marked from the handcuffs, tried to pull her blouse down to hide the marks, but her hands trembled. Her face was a picture of pain, a pain only those who've been through it can understand. As they led her to the patrol car, she glanced back, looking for someone, maybe a neighbor, maybe just a reassuring look. But all she found was a cell phone pointed at her and a smirking security guard. The patrol car drove off, leaving her alone, handcuffed inside. The wait at the precinct was unbearable. The room was crowded and stuffy. The officer who spoke to her didn't write anything down as she recounted what had happened. He looked at his phone, the wall, the computer, anything but her. She repeated, "I just want to buy rice. Just rice." Outside, the neighbor who had seen everything had already called me. I rushed out of the office, my heart racing, driving fast, unable to think about anything else. The image of my mother sitting on a dirty bench, treated like a criminal, consumed my mind. When I arrived at the precinct, I saw her sitting on a bench, her head down, looking defeated. She, the woman who had raised me, who had always been strong, was now silent, as though all her worth had been erased. The officer looked at me, and before he could speak, I showed him my ID. Public defender. This woman is my mother. At that moment, everything began to change. The precinct was small and cramped, more like a waiting room than a place of justice. My mother sat against the wall, her eyes downcast. It was as if they had stolen not just her right to buy rice, but her right to exist in peace. When I identified myself, the officer who had brought her in straightened up, feigning surprise. Ma'am, I didn't know she was your mother. I took a deep breath, controlled my anger, and calmly replied, did she have to be my mother for you to treat her with respect? He remained silent, avoiding my gaze, pretending to focus on some random paper. I knelt before my mother, holding her trembling hands. She murmured, Alana, I just wanted to buy rice. I just wanted to go home. I knew that look, the look of someone who had realized that in this environment, her word meant nothing. They had already made their decision. For a black, elderly, poor woman, the decision is always the same, guilty until proven innocent, and even then, still suspicious. I asked the officer to show me the report. They hadn't even started filling it out. They said they were waiting for the manager to bring the security footage. I crossed my arms and said, then we'll wait together. That's when I saw the security guard from the market in the corner of the room. He was leaning against the wall, talking on his phone and laughing as if he was certain everything would be brushed aside, as if it were just another black woman being searched. That hurt more than anything. I walked over to him. Do you have a name, sir? Yes, ma'am. And I have cameras too. It's all recorded. Great. Then let's see it. He recoiled, saying the manager would be there soon and the video was already set aside. His arrogance reflected his belief that even if he was wrong, he'd be protected. It reminded me of so many other cases I'd seen. This time, however, it was my mother at the center of it all. The manager arrived minutes later, walking casually as if it were just another day. He tried to greet me with a smile, but I refused. I want to see the footage. He opened his laptop. The video showed my mother entering the store, picking up a bag of rice, and heading toward the checkout. That's it, no sign of her hiding anything, leaving without paying, or acting suspiciously. I looked at him, and he lowered his eyes. It was a misunderstanding, he said. My mother, sitting on the bench, raised her head. Hearing those words, I thought, how easy it is for them to call what is actually a pattern a mistake, a pattern that repeats everywhere, bakery, market, store, bank. They don't ask, they judge. They don't listen, they arrest. The officer handling the case pulled me aside, trying to justify the situation, saying they were just following protocol. Protocol for what? For handcuffing an elderly woman who had committed no crime. He didn't answer, just looked at the floor. My mother, on the other side, began to cry, a soft, weary cry, not of fear, but of someone who had held on for too long. I took my cell phone, turned on the camera, and started recording. Justice doesn't come with applause or trophies. It comes with scars, sleepless nights, and the simple, radical act of doing what's right over and over again. Alana Monroe showed us that one voice can change everything. Now it's your turn. Share in the comments what you would have done in her place, and what this story means to you. Subscribe for more stories that transform pain into purpose.